Experience the future of packaging and processing up close and in action. Explore groundbreaking innovations, engage with hands-on solutions, and connect with the experts transforming the industry. See how these advancements can revolutionize your products, production lines, and business. It all starts here. Don't miss out. Register today at packexpolasvegas.com/unpackedpod. You're listening to Unpacked with PMMI, where we share the latest packaging and processing industry insights, research, and innovations to help you advance your business. Hi, and welcome back to another edition of Unpacked with PMMI. Today, we are going to dive into the OpX Leadership Network with a little introduction to our OpX Leadership Network. And we are talking today with Brian Griffin, who is Director of Industry Services for PMMI. Brian, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself before we dive into OpX?
Sounds good. So I spent about 25 years now in the industry. I've spent time as a systems integrator. That's where I started my career. And then spent 20 years with Nestle in various roles across the globe. I've worked in factories, corporate offices, research and development, and finally in Nestle's head office over in Europe, leading the electrical and automation activities across the globe. So I've got a good amount of experience in operations, and that's what we'd like to share today with the OpX Leadership Network.
Okay, perfect kickoff. What, for those who aren't familiar, what is the OpX Leadership Network?
Yeah, that's always the first question we get. So the OpX Leadership Network is a consortium of around 250 plus manufacturers, including end user manufacturers such as Nestle, Procter & Gamble, some others, as well as machine builders, the PMMI members. Together, we focus on solving common industry problems in a non-proprietary way. In other words, trying to set best practices for operational excellence across all of the issues that everyone faces on the shop floor.
Basically, you're bringing together the people that are making the equipment, the people that are buying the equipment, and you're saying what's bothering you about the people that are making the equipment, and what's bothering you about the people that are buying the equipment, you know, and not bothering you, but what are the challenges that you're facing and trying to come up with solutions to those challenges. Fair to say?
Exactly. And those challenges can be anything to do with operations. That's where the focus is. So we're not looking at HR issues per se, but we do have a work product on workforce engagement. How do we get our people engaged out in the manufacturing environment? So it's those types of common issues that we all seem to see in our operations. And we're looking at, is there a way to solve those problems as an industry as a whole, rather than individually with differing solutions?
Sure. Like it's way better to be a partnership than, you know, people doing their things in silos and then trying to figure out how to make that all mesh together. Okay. Is there any, you mentioned kind of the workforce one, but what are some key work products or tools that you've provided to the industry, you know, as a result of the OpX Leadership Network so far?
So the tools that we provide are broken into three different categories. Focus on people, the human asset, the focus on the processes that you're running in the factory, and then focus on projects, mainly capital spend, but also maintenance. How do we keep assets that are installed in the factory running the way they should be, the way they were designed to run, the way they were installed, however many years ago that was. So looking into those three separate categories, people, process, and projects, we have several different work products, we call them, or solutions, best practices in each of those. In the people side, we have things like I already mentioned, the workforce engagement. How do we keep people engaged? We have another one on safety. How do we install a culture of safety within the manufacturing facility? On the process side, we've got things like allergen cleaning verification tools or OEE calculators that help us understand how efficiently we're operating our equipment. We've got one on how do I connect to machines that are on the shop floor if I'm the builder of that machine and it's left my hands. So in other words, what are the tools I can use to get into the network of my customer for my machine specifically, but not be able to get into other parts of the system, be able to keep those securities in place. On the project side, we've got things like how do you do a request for proposal? I need to put a project together. What are the key concepts that I need to have in my RFP that the OEM will then be able to provide me with a good quote? And then if I go to multiple OEMs, I can get an apples to apples quote.
Mm-hmm.
Also, things along the lines of factory acceptance testing. Once I've got the equipment installed, how do I make sure that it's what I wanted? It's what I put into my specs and what I paid for. So those are the types of tools that we offer to the industry.
And they sound like you're everyone has to put out RFPs. You have to, if you're purchasing something, everyone that's bringing equipment in has to have an FAT. I'm on the opposite. If I'm on the opposite end and I'm looking at these products you guys are offering, how are they providing me value? Like, what are they going to do for me that I couldn't have done on my own? I guess, for like, how are they helping me?
Yeah, probably the best thing is that it's giving a single voice to the industry. So we're all talking about the same things. If we go into an FAT, we use certain terminologies, and we're setting that terminology as a standard that or a best practice that everyone uses, so that when we start discussions between OEMs or machine builders and the consumer packaged goods manufacturers,
Right.
we're talking the same language. We understand each other better.
Okay, I get that.
So that's probably the first goal that we have with all of these work products, is to set best practices that we all understand. The second goal would be to make sure that when we're doing a task, let's go with your example of the request for proposal. When we're doing that task, we're not forgetting anything.
Mm-hmm.
So in the RFP, for example, we have all of the information that you would need to go out to the supplier with about your facility as well. So how do I get the machine that I'm looking to
Right.
purchase, if I'm the end user, how do I get that into my factory? Is it modular and I can bring it in and assemble it on the floor? Or is it large enough I need to cut a hole in the wall or the ceiling and drop it in, etc.? These are the types of things, especially young engineers that are new to the process, may forget. So it's just a checklist that helps you go through and make sure you didn't forget anything. Pilots do the same thing. Every pilot, no matter how many years they've been a pilot, no matter how many hours they've logged, they have a checklist that they go through before every flight, and they mark off what they've done. These are the same sorts of tools. You're checking the box, make sure, okay, I didn't forget anything.
So it's like you said, it's you're not finding out at the 11th hour that the machine's great and you're purchased it and you're all ready to bring it in, and you can't get it into your facility because there's not an opening big enough to get it in. Like, something as simple as that is something that could slip through the cracks.
Exactly.
Okay, with that in mind, I guess, how do you guys, or within the OpX Leadership Network, how do you guys figure out what's going to be a topic? What you guys are going to try to tackle to come up with a best practice?
So that's a 3-step process for us. And it starts actually outside of the OpX Leadership Network. So PMMI has a program they call Vision 2025. Very shortly, it will change to Vision 2030. So it's looking out into the future a few years. And PMMI goes out and they survey the industry and find out what are the key things that you see coming down the pipe, or even today, that are going to be issues or are issues for you in your manufacturing facility. They take all that information and turn it into a report that then gets handed to the PMMI board of directors, who invites their key customers to come and talk together for a couple of days about the findings in that vision report. They prioritize what are the most important pieces, what should we focus on next, and then they hand that information over to the OpX Leadership Network's Executive Council, which goes through a process of identifying where are the critical pieces that we think we can provide value or input to. So we look for what we call white space. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. So if there's already a solution that's out there that addresses a particular topic, we don't want to redo that. We just want to point to it and say, hey, everybody, if you go use this, it's going to take care of that problem. If there's not a solution that's out there, then we develop a work product based on that gap or that white space.
Okay. Then, so you have, you found a spot there, this white space, that where there isn't a solution. Where do you go from there to create and develop the work product? How do you guys work internally to make that happen?
For the first time, PMMI members and Pack Expo exhibitors can gain a true insight into the competitive marketing landscape within the packaging and processing industries. See real data from PMMI Media Group campaigns on engagement from validated, verified end users, including the amount of captured leads and even how Pack Expo booth visits align with pre-show marketing. You'll also get a full view of campaign strategies in market across all 12 months for competitors in your product category with variations by channel. This kind of intel has never been available before. Request your custom competitive analysis report now at pmmi.media/CAR. That's pmmi.media/CAR.
All right, so the OpX Executive Council, which is about 35 to 40 people, high-level executives from manufacturing companies, they're the ones who get together and decide where we should focus. And once they decide on that topic, they create what's called a task force. That task force goes out, looks to see if there's white space. That's the process I just described. Mm-hmm. If the task force finds white space, then what they do is come back to the executive council and say, here's the boundaries on that white space.
Right.
We then put together a solutions group made up of experts in that field. These experts are not necessarily your executives either at this point. We're looking at operators, engineers, technicians, QA analysts, etc., the people who really know that particular subject. They come together and they meet on a biweekly basis via WebEx for 45 minutes each time to start developing a solution to plug that gap. That process takes anywhere from 6 months to 2 years, depending on the complexity of the white space or the problem they're trying to solve. Once they've come up with that solution, they then take it and pilot it in one of their factories. So typically a solutions group has anywhere between 15 and 35, 40 people that are participating. One of those or two of those will raise their hand and say, hey, let's go try this in one of my factories. We go in, we do the pilot, we run a bunch of metrics around it, talk to people, see how it worked, make any adjustments that we need to the solution, and then we publish the solution for adoption by the industry.
Okay, so then how does the industry, how do you get that out to the industry? How does the industry find out, that this work product exists and how it's going to solve this problem that you guys are trying to solve?
There are a number of ways that we do that. The first and foremost method for distributing it is via our website. So opxleadershipnetwork.org.
Okay.
You can find all of the work products that we've done on that website, and they are free for everyone. That's one of our slogans, is that these work products are developed by industry, for industry, and free for all to use. So you can download them free of charge.
You're doing all this work for up to 2 years, and then you're giving it away for free.
Absolutely. That's the point. If it's a best practice that we want the industry to use, the best way to get the industry to use it is to give it to them. If you charge for it, people start to question whether or not that's something they should do.
That's perfect. Yeah, I didn't mean to step on what you were saying. I just, free is great. Okay. So as you were saying, getting it out on the website, opxleadershipnetwork.org.
Yep.
And in other ways.
No, that's fine. The other ways that we publish it, not necessarily publishing the work product, but publishing information about it, is through PMMI's media group. So we have a number of different periodicals and magazines that come out regularly throughout the year. Packaging World does articles for OpX Leadership Network on a regular basis, as does Pro Food World, Automation World, as well as PMMI's internal magazine or publication, OEM. Each of those publications will look at the various work products that we have, and on about a quarterly basis, they'll put out an article highlighting one or more of these solutions. So it brings the knowledge of it to the industry, and then there's always the link that says, here's where you can go get it now.
So what, I'm aware of it, you've shared it with the world. What am I, I guess kind of, what am I getting from you to implement this? What kind of materials is going to come from the OpX Leadership Network that I'm going to implement in my operations that's going to, hopefully solve my challenge? What kind of materials am I going to receive?
That depends on which work product you're looking at, because they're all different. The solutions groups determine what's the best type of tool to release to the industry around whatever their topic is. So, for example, with the OEE, we found some white space where OEE is a very common concept within the industry, but it's not always calculated the same way. So we built a calculator in Excel that's a very detailed method for going through and calculating what your OEE is and what the benefits of increasing or improving that OEE would be to you in your particular situation. So that work product, you would get a user guide and an Excel tool. Other work products are simply a best practice guideline. Some of them have checklists associated with them that you also get. So it really depends on what the task is that's being solved, or the problem that's being solved, what type of tool we're going to use and distribute to the industry.
Okay, so some are almost, like you said, one's a calculator. It's a literal tool that you're going to be plugging numbers and stuff in. Others are, kind of the guidelines and checklists to go through the process. So it's going to vary, like you said, by the different products. Do you guys have a best practice for how to implement these into your operation? Because, for some people, bringing in change from the outside might be, hard to sell within their plant. So do you have recommendations on how a company should kind of implement these work products into their operations?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways that we suggest doing that. Probably the best way is to look internally within your company at where your pain points are. What is causing you the most difficulty out on the manufacturing floor? And then come to the opxleadershipnetwork.org webpage and figure out what solutions we have that could address that particular issue. Then you can download the work product, and the work products, by the way, are best practices. They're not standards, so you can customize it. If there's a certain part of a process that you have very well entrained within your business, but you're lacking some of the peripheral pieces that would make that more efficient, then take those pieces from whatever the OpX tool is and use those in conjunction with your own best practice.
Okay, I like that.
We've got several of our member companies that, for example, they take the RFP tool, which is also an Excel spreadsheet where you can add in information. And they've customized it to include certain information that is a requirement of their company and not something that can change from project to project. So they've created now a template that they can use for their company when they're going out for a request for proposal, and it's slightly different from one of their competitors who has different rules. So we're not trying to lock these down into something that you must do it 100% this way. The idea is we're providing you with some guidelines that are going to help you speak and communicate with your machine builders, or if you're the machine builder, communicate with your customers in a more consistent manner.
That's like I like that there's not, you've named a lot of big companies that are involved with this, and there's not, it's almost like there's no ego involved in terms of this is how you should be solving your problems. I think that's a great selling point, or for someone to use these, that we're not saying these are the cut and dry way that you have to do it. We're just trying to offer you some best practices that we've used our knowledge together to come up with, to say, this is one way that you could do it that might, streamline your operation. I like that there's not that, putting their foot down saying, follow these guidelines, or, don't use them at all. So that's interesting. Okay. So how do I get involved? How do I get my company involved? How do I join up with, is there room for me? How do I get involved with the OpX Leadership Network?
Yeah, there's room for everyone. What we look for is assistance from the industry in a couple of different areas. When we are creating a work product, we will look to the industry to provide the experts to help us develop what that work product is going to look like. So right now, as an example, we're doing one on asset reliability.
Okay.
How do I ensure that my machines are being maintained in such a way that they operate as efficiently as possible, as efficiently as they were designed to operate through time, so that 10 years from now, that machine is still operating correctly. So we've gone out to the industry and looked for maintenance specialists that can come in and can talk with us and help us figure out what are some tools that we should be using to ensure maintenance is being done properly on a machine. So once we have the work product developed, we also need a fresh set of eyes to then come in and take a look at the work product and tell us if we're missing anything, if we have anything that is contradictory, anything that we should add to it. So that's two totally separate groups of industry experts that we're looking to engage in that process, those that develop and those that validate. The third place is adoption and case studies. Everybody loves to see a case study, something that has worked for someone that they can look at it and say, that might actually work for me too. It's not just smoke and mirrors. So when you adopt a particular work product, we would love to get feedback from you to know how you've used it, the value that it's brought to you, and any gaps that there might be in it that you've seen that we can improve in revision 2. At which time we probably will ask you to participate in revision 2 to help us develop those gaps that you saw in the next version.
Okay, so again, it's a collaboration. It's not a group that again came together and said this is the rules we're going to come up with. I love that you're willing to listen to and want input from as many people as possible to make these as, the best practices. What kind of things do you guys have during the year or maybe at the trade shows that people can attend or can learn about what it is that you guys are doing?
So we are very present at PMMI's trade shows, Pack Expo and Pro Food Tech.
Okay.
We have a couple of sessions on what's called the Forum, which is an open discussion learning platform that's available to anyone who's attending Pack Expo. This year, we're going to be doing sessions on the asset reliability. We're going to be looking for input from the industry for that one. We're going to look at OEE calculations and I believe the request for proposal solution. We also will be presenting a new program at the innovation stage at Pack Expo Las Vegas that recognizes individuals and companies that embrace these work products and help drive their use within the industry. So there's quite a bit of activity that goes on for us around those trade shows. We also have a couple of other meetings during the year for the Executive Council to make sure that all of our work products are on track, to look at potential new work products in white space and discuss the results of the work products that we have put into the industry to see if there's any change of direction or enhancements that need to be made.
So I love that even at the show, where there's going to be 30,000 attendees, you guys are willing to have, you want people to come in, so to tinker is probably not the right word, but, to come in and sort of look at these products that you guys are working on and kind of talk them out, like you said, in the forum and get input from the different, again, you're going to have 30,000 different people that might be at the show attending for a variety of different reasons, but they could all, could come by and offer some different piece of input that you wouldn't have already had. So you guys really are going out to every opportunity you can to get input that's going to make these the best practices that you possibly can.
Yeah, that's a formula that has worked well for us over the years. As an example, again, continuing on with the RFP, which is one we seem to have highlighted here. Mm-hmm. When we were developing that last year, we brought it to the forum and did an open session at the forum on the RFP tool at where we showed, look, here's the direction we're going with this. Now, what do you see as some of the gaps? And we came up with 5 or 6 ideas from the group where they saw some gaps, and we brought those back to the solutions group that was developing the tool, and they integrated those into the tool. So the final product has that direct input from our attendees at PAC Expo.
That's fantastic. It's just a great way of bringing, like you said, as much input as you possibly can into getting these and making them the best practices you can. I'm out of questions. I think you've pretty much covered it all. Is there anything else out there that you'd want to get out about the OpX Leadership Network?
Yeah, let me just also mention that at PAC Expo, we will have a kiosk in PMMI's booth at the front of the show. So if you have any questions, suggestions on new work products that we could develop, or you just want to come by and get in a little bit more detail on any of the work products that we offer, please stop by. I will be at that booth regularly, as well as we'll have some other folks there that can talk to you at any level of detail you'd like to get.
Well, you're a pod star now, so people are going to want to put a face to the name, the voice that they've heard. So they're definitely going to want to stop by, maybe get an autograph or a picture or something like that.
There you go. Selfies are welcome.
Okay. I really appreciate your time today, Brian. Thanks again to everyone for listening to Unpacked with PMMI. Be sure to join us next time for more packaging and processing industry insights. Please rate, review, and subscribe. To do that, go to the iTunes podcast or Spotify app on your phone and search for Unpacked with PMMI.